Hello and welcome to Sports Tonight Live. I'm Chris Cohen and Sports Tonight Live is the only place you can have your say throughout the Euros. We're on Sky Channel Primetime 480 or you can watch us throughout the world at sportsnightlive.com. Now, as I said, it's your opportunity to have a say on anything you want to say, be it domestic or be it Euro-based football or other sports. You can tweet us at Sports Night TV or Skype us, Sports Night Live. You can, of course, use a dog and bone, 0207 291 0868. Now, this evening we're going to be concentrating on the Euros. They're just around the corner, aren't they, guys? The guys I'm referring to are, of course, the man who knows everything there is to know about football, both domestically and internationally. I'm going to be testing you on Hungary as well. It's Gordon Crash Watson. Are you
Cheers, Chris. I'm really well, really excited.
You're looking very well. You're both, in fact, looking quite talented.
Well, I went to Southampton and Mina went to Turkey, so not a lot of difference.
Mina, of course, the presenter of the World Football Show here at Sports Night Live, and everything there is to know about European football is up there in your tiny yet perfectly formed head.
Wow,
how are you?
That's putting a lot of pressure on me knowing everything about European football.
That's why you're here. That's why you're here. Now, there's plenty to talk about, of course. I thought we'd start with Ireland. They're playing tonight against Hungary, and a lot of people are pitching them as perhaps a bit of a dark horse for this tournament. Flash, how far can the Irish go?
I think quarter-final. I think they'll get through. They don't let goals in. They're stubborn. Trapattoni's got them well organised and that. So,
wait, hold on.
Whoa. I'd like to say that I think Ireland can definitely get through at the expense of Italy. I think Spain are a given. and I think if we kick it off, let's get it out in the open. I don't think Italy will progress.
I have to say, this is going to end. This is just basically going to be an hour of arguing because Mina, if you're not aware, is a heartfelt Italian fan. I'm assuming you don't agree.
No, I don't agree. It's not that I don't think that Ireland has any chance. I actually think that they're a solid team altogether. I'm a big fan of Giovanni Trapattoni. Juventus spent their best years with him as coach, but I mean, come on, you're trying to tell me that the likes of Pirlo, Marchisio, they have the Juventus spine that won the league now, and otherwise
look at the league they won. There was no depth in that league.
Really?
And you have a look at you've got like De Rossi and Pirlo. They're over the hill. They're not mobile enough. They will get caught out.
I have to say,
so basically, you're telling me that Pirlo is done and dusted, yeah?
No, I'd say that he'd probably be best of a bad bunch.
Right. So what you're telling me is the likes of Ireland, who are basically
a team.
Oh, really?
Yes.
And a team at the expense of Italy, who have Balotelli, who's just won Manchester City, with this wonderful
yeah, I mean, he had a bit part.
Cassano, who is probably one of the most creative geniuses we have in modern-day football. Pirlo, Marchisio, Daniele De Rossi.
Daniele De Rossi cannot run.
Who Real Madrid still wouldn't mind. Daniele De Rossi can't run.
No, I've seen him live. I've seen him. I went there to watch him.
I will interject here just momentarily, because one thing I've heard, we do want to steer it back onto Ireland in a sec. One thing I have heard a lot of people say about Italy is their qualifying campaign, and they only conceded, was it 2 in the whole of that qualifying campaign?
They're undefeated.
Yeah. So only 20, 2 goals. Let in 2.
But when you look at the opponents that Italy had in that group,
that's a good point.
Estonia, the Faroe Islands, Northern Ireland, Serbia, Slovenia, I fancy that I could have been in that Italian side and done a job against those teams. I know since then you've come up against Uruguay and didn't do so well. Exactly, Russia as well.
Yeah, but then you look at the fact that they've defeated both Poland and Spain in the friendlies, and also you can't take too much out of these friendly losses. Yeah, they did lose against Russia the other day, and quite badly, 3-0. They did, of course, lose against Uruguay, but these have largely been games where they've just experimented with the team to try to figure out where to place them.
If Italy get beaten or they draw with Republic of Ireland, would you see that that's Italy's chances completely dented? Because did you think they'll get something out of the Spain game?
Yeah, I think they defeated Spain in the friendlies.
But you just said don't worry about this.
Well, no, but I'm saying, I think that
you can't manipulate
Spain is incredibly worried about facing Italy, because despite whatever you say about Italy, the fact of the matter is they perform when it's the big stage. They thrive under pressure.
I have to agree.
These are they've won the World Cup 4 times, and they've usually won it on the back of a scandal, which is what's happening now.
Yeah, Italy have also never lost to Spain in a European Championship tournament. Anyway, listen, we have to steer it back to Ireland. The flag is there, and otherwise they'll have to. Do we flip that over to make that Italian? I don't know. I can't remember. Anyway, if we're talking about Ireland, you said they're a team. They're a team.
They are.
The incident with Foley, well documented that he said he felt betrayed by Trapattoni. He was, of course, called up to the initial squad, wasn't he, on the 7th of May. Then, due to injuries elsewhere in the team, Paul McShane was brought in, wasn't he, who can act as a right back and a centre back. Is this perhaps this team ethos, or this team perception that's given out? maybe something of a lie when you look at the issue that you had there with Foley?
Not really. I think that Foley was just frustrated and really disappointed. You expect any footballer to be if they don't actually go to basically the holy grail of what they've been working for over the last 2 years. But with Trapattoni, he knows that every single player he puts on the pitch will go and do the job that he's asked them to do. And they hardly let any goals. And I think they're unbeaten in 15. I think they've had 8 clean sheets on the bounce. And I really do believe that this Group C I think Spain are a given, right? Yeah. Spain are a given. And it's up for grabs. And I don't see a lot between Italy, Republic of Ireland, or Croatia.
I find it interesting that you think Spain is such a given. But anyway, I do think it's...
well, they're world champions and European champions.
We'll go up to someone who probably knows a little bit more about the Irish setup than we do here. Barry Landy, of course, Irish journalist, joining us now on the Skype. Well, Barry, how are you, first and foremost? You well?
Yeah, good, thanks, Chris.
Good stuff. Now, listen, I don't know how much of the conversation you've already heard. We were talking about the harmony in that Italian camp. In the Irish camp. Plenty of harmony in the Italian camp. Why wouldn't there be? But I mean, have they got enough? Trapattoni, we know he's set them up to be hard to beat. Nick a goal here and there. We're talking maybe quarterfinals, maybe beyond that. What do you think are Ireland's chances in this competition?
Well, Chris, I think Ireland have got a decent chance, but I'm really wary because in the last few days, obviously, as the sort of build-up to the tournament is cranking up, a lot of people are saying a lot of good things about Ireland. Oh, they could get to the quarters, or they can do this, they can do that. I want to sort of dampen expectations slightly, just to give Ireland a little bit of a chance. We're a good side. That's undisputable. I mean, we qualified in a group which, frankly, wasn't great. I heard you list the teams that Italy beat in their qualifying group, but frankly, Ireland only won 6 games in their group, 2 against Macedonia, 2 against Andorra and 2 against Armenia. So, we're not fantastic. We're unbeaten in 13, Flash, not 15, but I mean, it's still a very good run. And, you can take positives from that, but those games include, like the games we say we won, Macedonia, Armenia, Andorra, Estonia, Northern Ireland, Scotland. We haven't played many of the big teams.
I'm just going to interrupt you there, just because the line's not great here. We're going to try and get back to you very shortly. Just we're having a few issues with sound.
Okay.
While we try and reconnect that call there, for you, we're talking about obviously you're saying 13 games unbeaten. If you're an Ireland fan sitting at home and you're an England fan sitting at home, who do you think is the most optimistic going into this? I would say arguably the Irish.
Oh yeah, I mean I think again as you get closer to the tournament, you can dampen it all you like, but then as soon as the first game comes along, you think you're going to win because you don't ever go into any sort of competition thinking, oh, you're going to get beat, and because it's just not the way that we are. Now, I think that both sides have got chances at best, maybe to get to the quarter final. I think England will struggle if they let in a goal early.
My money's actually on England winning it.
Really?
Wow. Well, 16-1 you can get that. But there's the longest odds we've ever had for England going into a competition.
Yeah, this is the first time that England go into a competition without any pressure, with people assuming that they are going to lose immediately because of everything that they've suffered recently. And you know what? It's almost a blessing in disguise that they've lost some of their best players in the likes of Lampard, and that they can just play Steven Gerrard in his position. They don't have to worry about tinkering. They can just focus on their defensive unity, and that's it.
Well, we'll talk about England in a little bit more depth later on in the show. Ireland obviously opening their campaign against Croatia. Olic was the main threat for Croatia. Is now
only
out.
threat, someone might say.
Exactly. You were telling me an interesting stat, I think, about the Czech Republic, their left back being the top scorer.
Yeah,
but
Mikhail Kadlec.
Where do the goals come from then for Croatia? I mean, this is a game that if Ireland are going to progress in this tournament, they have to win.
Yeah, without a doubt. And then that would put pressure on. I expect Spain to beat Italy, and I expect Ireland to maybe beat Croatia, and then that puts the pressure right on Italy because that means they have to go and beat Republic of Ireland, and I don't see that happening. I see that as being a 0-0.
I think it's a bit presumptuous to think that Spain is just going to go through and just battle everyone and win it.
You've got to have an opinion on, and you asked me how you think it's going to go, and I think that Spain will have too much for Italy. I really do.
No chance.
Well, that will be proved over the next 10 days.
It will be proved, but
Flash, I'll tell you, if
but when it comes to Croatia, they don't. Okay, it's a big loss with Olic, especially because he can provide run, and they tend to play with a really deep defensive line. So it's quite hard getting the ball forward. They have a lot of attacking options. Actually, their problem with Croatia is that they have a few defensive options. They've also got their midfielders. They play with Modric and alongside another player who's not very defensively capable. So if anything, that's going to be their problem. They're a very attacking team, which should be interesting for a team like for Republic of Ireland, and if anything, I do think Ireland has a good shot at that one.
Do you think that Croatia? You'd agree with me? Croatia are probably the weakest of the group in the group.
Yes, I would say
So
so.
if you're going to catch them early,
Yeah.
and this is what I think Ireland will do.
Let's head back to Barry. I think the line has been restored. It was my fault. I think I was downloading something in the background. Barry, now listen, before I rudely interrupt you, you were telling us about the expectation levels there are for Ireland, how they've been growing recently, and you were pouring a little bit of water on that.
Yeah, well, just to be cautious. I mean, you know, Ireland are a limited team. I think, as everyone knows, you know, we can get a result, and we've shown we can get a result. But I don't want people saying, you know, Ireland, oh, definitely for the quarters. I just like to dampen it somewhat. Just I heard you referring to the Kevin Foley issue a few minutes ago. On that, you know, I don't think anyone can read too much into that at all. You have to take it in context, and you know, realise that this is Kevin Foley we're talking about, and not Roy Keane. This isn't 10 years ago. This isn't Saipan. You know, Foley has had, I think he's made 6 caps in 4 years, I think his statistic is. So he doesn't play that often. And frankly, he's not very central to the team. Whether or not that impacts on the squad and morale, I don't think so, because this Irish team hasn't been at a major tournament in 10 years. A lot of the older players like Gunn, Given, Keane and Duff were there 10 years ago when Roy Keane walked out on the team, and they know the impact that can have. You know, and it wasn't good, and Ireland was divided, and still is in some cases over Roy Keane. So, you know, take Foley's situation in context. I don't think that'll have a bearing at all. Ireland's preparation's been really good, actually. Like I say, they're unbeaten in 13. You know, scoring a few goals now. 1-0 win over Bosnia was followed up by a 5-0 win against a Tuscan 11 during the week, where all Ireland strikers that played scored. So, you know, that's coming good at the right time as well. And I think we certainly have a chance. Like Flash said, Croatia's the big game. If we can beat Croatia, you know, to get even a point. Often we see in these Euro Championships, 4 points can see you through. So the Croatia game's a big one.
It certainly is. Well, listen, best of luck to Ireland tonight in their friendly, and also best of luck to the rest of the tournament. So I'd imagine in England, when we go out, we'll all be supporting the Irish. But cheers, Barry. Thanks so much for chatting to us. Right, now, after the break, we're going to be talking about England. More injury concerns, of course, with Cahill out, and perhaps some dubious call-ups from Roy Hodgson. All that will be discussed by myself, Mina and Flash, right after this. Hello, welcome back to Sports Tonight Live here on Sky Primetime Channel 480 or online, sportstonightlive.com. And throughout the Euros, want to hear from you. You can get in touch with 0207 291 0868 or Skype us at Sports Tonight Live. Also on Twitter, of course, we are Sports Tonight TV. Now, for this show, it's getting a little bit tasty. I like it because we've all got opinions. I don't. I sit on the fence very firmly. But Flash and Mina are full of opinions. For this part, we're going to be concentrating though on England. Of course, more injury concerns with Gary Cahill being out. Martin Kelly, boys drafted into the squad. That for me was a little bit of an odd one, but not that odd when you consider the rest of the call-ups that Roy has perhaps made. The fact that, you know, if you play for Liverpool, you're pretty much playing for England seems to be the deal at the moment. I think Skirtle's on standby, as is Rayner. They're both expecting a call-up any minute. Micah Richards was obviously everyone's choice. They were like, Micah should be playing. He's a utility player as well. Yep. He could play centre-half, he could play right-back. But he ruled himself out of the reserve list, from what we understand.
But he shouldn't have been on the reserve list, should he?
No.
He's the most athletic right back probably in Europe. And we decided not even to put him in the initial squad. And the way that Roy Hodgson now wants to play, he wants to play with defenders that are not going to go over the halfway line, keep a solid back four, and we'll suffocate teams or hit them on the break. Well, now Glenn Johnson at right back, he's probably better going forward than he is defending. So why would you have that one? Then obviously you lose Cahill and you bring in Kelly, because you then say that Phil Jones are going to midfield. Now, for me, it screams out that Micah Richards should have been in there.
Yeah, but he ruled himself out, so it's not like...
But he should have been in there in the first place. If he wouldn't have ruled himself out if he was in the initial squad.
But my point is that, like, you know, there's two sides of the story. You can say he shouldn't have ruled himself out, I agree, but I understand why he might have done it, because why should he be on a standby list? But at the same time, whether you're on a standby list or not, this is your country, and if your country needs you, you go out and you play.
He's obviously thrown his toys out the pram. I just want to know if Mancini's actually had a word with Hodgson and said something detrimental towards Micah Richards, because if Micah Richards plays like he did all season, I mean, obviously he missed the last few games because Zabaleta came in, but you'd have Micah Richards in any side.
But then, Micah Richards aside, a lot of people would argue.
Johnson.
Yeah, well, a lot of people would argue that you should have Rio Ferdinand in there. And if we're talking about spitting out dummies, the way Rio and his representatives have handled that situation, you could say arguably that they've handled it very terribly. I think I remember when Beckham was omitted quite dramatically by McLaren when he first came in. Similar age, 31. you didn't hear David Beckham or anyone that's associated with David in any way crying or saying, "Oh, this is terribly unfair." Do you think Rio, in some ways, has made a rod for his own back with regards to the rest of his international career?
Yeah, I personally think that Roy Hodgson's probably made a rod for his own back, because he's come out and said it was basically a toss-up between Terry and Ferdinand. He's gone for Terry, footballing reasons. If Terry's hamstring was worse than has obviously come across after the Belgian game, I reckon Ferdinand would have been the one that he calls up. So then it's not footballing reasons.
But
It's
no,
a case
I
of
don't
not
agree
having
with
them
that.
both
No, I
in.
don't agree with that,
You
because
think
when
he
he went
wouldn't
through
have them both
it,
in the same squad?
No, firstly, they're too old to play together. I think that in his mentality, it's much better to go with Terry, because he's played alongside Cahill, he's played alongside Ashley Cole. You've got the Chelsea sort of back three there in the defence, and he's played with these players. So he's better to be going forward as a choice than Ferdinand.
But we've lost Cahill now.
Well, they've lost Cahill now. They're still Ashley Cole, but I would still choose, if I had to, I would still choose, I wouldn't choose Rio Ferdinand, and I'd go for Terry. And they're too old. It is footballing reasons. They're much better off trying to get the youth that they are looking at this experience as a training ground effectively. And what they are going through, this is the World Cup that they care about more than anything. And it's a time to actually start giving youth a chance.
Well, then you wouldn't play Terry then. You'd play Lescott and
You need
Jagielka.
some defence at the back. You need
Yeah,
some
but I mean,
sort
the
of
best one,
experience
the best
at the
one is
back.
Ashley Cole, who probably is one of the best left backs in the
Yeah,
in the
but you
world.
need more experience than
Let's head
that.
up to the Skype because we have a United fan here. Obviously, we have an opinion on Rio. I mean, my argument is that Rio hasn't had the best of seasons anyway. United fans, I know, will argue that and say
that's not true.
he's had a decent.
Yeah, he's had a good
sort of run.
season in the end.
Steve, thank you for contacting us here at Sports Night Live. How are you, mate?
Not bad, mate. You all right?
I'm very well. Now, listen, first things first, Rio aside, were you surprised with Kelly's call-up over, say, Richards, who had perhaps ruled himself out? Are you surprised by the squad as a whole and some of Roy's decisions when it's come to clientele?
I think he's done what he can with the players available, really, hasn't he? And the call-up since the actual squad with players dropping out, yeah, they've been a little bit suspect. But other than say, Carrick, I can't see anybody else who's been called up who you would say has been really left out and doesn't deserve to be. So he's working with the tools he's got, I suppose, in the most sense.
But when you look at, say, Stuart Downing, who I know, he's had an average season, I would say, at best. There's no bones about it. Zero assists,
no
goals.
No assists.
And then you look at players like Danny Sturridge, who started the season brilliantly, maybe fell away a little bit. Joe Cole, who's had a tremendous season at Lille. Adam Johnson, who for me, it's astonishing he's not in the squad. Do you not look at some of those and just think, why? I mean, what explanation is there for not including three of perhaps the most creative players England have got when you haven't got Will Shearer and those players around?
Well, I think he's got a game plan, hasn't he? And I don't personally agree with the Downing call-up, but then in the same way, Adam Johnson wasn't playing every week for City, so it works in one way that even though he wasn't maybe producing the very best for Liverpool, he was playing most weeks, and I suppose you want players going in there that have been playing. The Sturridge one I could understand to a degree in that, he's still developing, and it probably would have been one of Welbeck or Sturridge, and he's gone for one or the other. You can't really sort of pick too many bones about that, but he just seems to have a game plan. I think you've seen that in the two friendlies as well, that, solid back, solid in the middle, and then see what we can get from the players wide and up front.
Steve, tell us a little bit about Jones. Obviously, you've seen a lot of him this year. Do you think he's going to play holding midfield? Will he play right back? Will he be cover for centre-half?
If he goes to centre-half, England have got big issues because he's not ready to play centre-half. He showed that at United. If anything, I would say probably right cover for right back and maybe in central midfield. But if we're going centre-half, we haven't got a Pred because he's really not ready for that. He hasn't got the knowledge or the responsibility to be able to hold that position, which is why I'm surprised he's gone, really. I think if Smalling had been fit, I think he may have gone in place of Jones.
Steve, do you not think that Jones is a better defender at right back than Glenn Johnson?
He can be on his day, but there's been times when he's a bit too over-exuberant in going forward and he'll leave himself exposed. I mean, really looking at him and Johnson, you would probably say that Johnson is the more understanding of the position maybe of the two at the moment, and I think he would probably go with him over Jones right now. But as he develops, I can see Jones being a fairly good right back, but right now I'd probably still pick Johnson, to be honest. I was going to say, as a United fan, Stephen, obviously you're being flanked currently in our studio by Rio Ferdinand, which is no doubt making you look a much better looking chap than you are. No offence to your visage in any way anyway, but do you agree with Jamie Morales' comments, obviously a representative of Rio's, that
he's been treated with an absolute lack of respect. Roy Hodgson's shunned him, and it just basically he's been treated in the most awful way possible.
I think he has for the argument in that it was footballing reasons he was left out. I'm sorry, just be honest with the fans. We're not stupid. He wasn't left out for footballing reasons. There's a genuine issue there between him and Terry, and Hodgson's gone for Terry in this instance, which that's what he wants to do. Fair enough, just be honest. But since then, there's been nothing coming out, and I'm nothing against Martin Kelly as a lad. I think maybe going forward he will be a good international player, but it isn't right that Ferdinand's not been there's not been a message at all to say, look, the reason he's not being picked up is because of this, and simple as that. I think fans would have a lot more respect if that was the case. It just looks as if they're trying to play us at a game when we're a lot smarter than they give us credit for.
Okay, Steve, let's be honest here. Like, Martin Kelly's not going to probably play. They bring in Rio Ferdinand. Do you think that he would actually have a chance at playing at the back?
If he picked him, yeah, I'd have him. I mean, if personally, I would have had Ferdinand and either Lescott or Cahill playing. I wouldn't have had Terry. I don't think he's been playing particularly well this season. Whereas I think Cahill came in at Chelsea and did well. Lescott's been great at City. And Ferdinand, since Christmas, has barely missed a game for United and was excellent in bringing Evans and De Gea into the level we needed of them. So I would have had him in there every time.
I agree. I think Ferdinand's actually had more appearances this season than Gerrard, and Gerrard's in there, and no one's really questioning it. He said it's a different choice.
And the big one is Ferdinand's England captain, even without the armband, so it's another chance to have a leader on the pitch.
One thing I'll ask you, Flash, is that there seems to be this thing about England fans, certainly after Africa, where we're saying, oh, look, I would have liked to just see all the kids play, just bring in all the kids. When Roy does bring in a kid, a young player,
of course,
like Oxlade-Chamberlain, like Kenny, we're all going, no, what's Ferdinand?
Yeah, but I said last week that I would happily play Jones, obviously Cahill, Lescott and Cole as my back four. Now you lose Cahill, so you have to bring one in. Now he's going to bring Terry in, so we know that. But the way that he wants to play, he doesn't want a right back that's going to gallop forward. He doesn't want a left back that's going to gallop forward. He wants a solid four that are not going to move. But the way he's played in midfield, Milner, it doesn't play wide right, so that means that any team that plays against us who are going to set up are going to fly down our right wing. And we saw it with Belgium over the weekend. Yeah. Belgium had plenty time to cross balls into the box.
Yeah, but positionally they were absolutely perfect, and they know how to stick to a plan. And maybe what Hodgson wants is players that will listen to him and do exactly as they're told, as opposed to ones a little bit like
and then
that.
When it's come out, because we've only had 6 shots on goal in 2 games. Now we'll come back to you and your Italian ways of winning games 1-0 and being happy.
It wins you games though.
I actually fell asleep watching the game in the first half because it was so dour. Now, are we going to celebrate winning, or are we going to go out there and be really and show our expressions and play with a free flowing?
Well,
I don't think we will.
We'll find out. If we want robots.
And I think
what matters more, being beautiful losers, which you're never going to be because you're not beautiful enough to be beautiful losers, or better just to win, and like Chelsea.
We're going to let Steve go now. Steve, it's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you, and I'm sure we'll speak to you more over the Euros because there's going to be plenty more to talk about, I'm sure, when England get off and underway in that tournament. Cheers for now, Steve.
Good luck, mate.
Speak to you soon.
I mean, I have to say, as a Chelsea fan, and certainly it's been the blueprint this season for us. I don't care how we play. If England get 1-0 and end up in the final every single game...
What's the problem with that? Why is that so looked down upon? Like, you know, unless you're going to play the way that...
Hang on a minute. Sorry to interrupt. I have to interrupt because on the phone line we've got the bet butler, Nigel C, who joins us, gives us all the odds. He's in Donetsk right now. Nigel, can you hear us?
I can hear you guys. How you doing?
I'm very well. Hi. All the better for hearing your jolly little Cockney voice. Now listen, what's the latest from Donetsk?
I'll tell you what, mate, it's very, very warm. I don't know if people are going to actually realise how warm it is. We've flown in this evening at 9 o'clock local time. It's still 27 degrees. Very humid. I'm not quite sure the people that are coming out here are going to expect it to be as hot as this. It's very, very warm. But it's a bit of a culture shock. I mean, when you come into most European cities, you can probably string 2 or 3 words together and people know what you're saying about. None of the signs you're familiar with, none of the things you're familiar with. So it's a bit of a culture shock for the England fans coming out here. But it's very dark, obviously. It's 9:30 now local time, but it's very hot. That's the first thing that struck me this evening.
This doesn't surprise me at all. An Englishman goes over to somewhere else and just goes, oh, it's really hot, I don't like it. Nigel, out of interest, mate, now that you're there and you're breathing in the atmosphere of the tournament, has your mind changed at all? Because we know obviously you're all about betting, you're all about the betting odds. Has your mind changed at all about which teams could be doing the business, which team could be a dart horse?
Well, when we come in, we've only literally been in Donetsk for about 15 minutes, so really it's quite gauge to see what's
actually happening. That's plenty of time, Butler. That's plenty of time.
I mean, I do think the games at 5 o'clock will be. It's very, like I say, the humidity is quite strong. I mean, we spoke to a couple of locals. They anticipate big thunderstorms going to go. And when they say big thunderstorms, they reckon, lightning storms. It's going to be the weather conditions are going to be quite freaky. So, I mean, I still think the local teams are going to be ones. I think they're going to be dark horses. I think Poland and Ukraine will be dark horses because we just got a connecting flight down from Kiev, and I still, even we're only sort of 6 or 7 days away from the first England game, we were the only 2 English people on it. So I don't think there's many other people coming out here.
Obviously, we've been talking about the England squad as well and the changes that we made. What have you made of some of the inclusions to that team, certainly with Kelly in particular being called in for the injured Cahill?
Well, I think it's a massive shock, but it was a shock that he put him on the standby list. It was a shock that he brought some of these players in. I mean, he's obviously made a decision that Rio Ferdinand's not going to play any part of it, which everyone have their own personal opinion about it. I don't think it really matters if Kelly's in the squad because I don't think he'll play many minutes. I mean, it's a defensive partnership with Lescott and Cherry's going to be foremost in our plans. But what he's going to do is going to make it very, very difficult, and he's going to make it a very, very hard team to beat. And for the opening game, I think it's going to be a very, very, very close game. We're not going to be hard, and I don't think what personnel you got there is just not going to change plans. So, I mean, as I say, we're going to have a little wander around tomorrow, speak to some of the guys, see what the support is like locally. But you know what, when we got on the plane, we went through all the lists in the Ukrainian Airways brochure, and it had all the key events, and it didn't even mention the Euros. That wasn't a great time.
Listen, Bet Butler, we'll let you crack on, because I'm sure you've got to get to your hotel or do whatever you're doing. But you're going to be joining us, obviously, throughout the Euro. So, for the moment, we'll speak to you and on. Thank you very much. That was Nigel Seeley, the Bet Butler there, joining us. Now, we're going to take another break. When we come back, Mina's going to have a say about all things Italian. Plus, we're going to have a little look at Portugal, maybe touch on Holland. Yeah, any team involved. I might talk a bit about Hungary. We haven't mentioned them yet. Not in the tournament, but worth chatting about. They're not. Right, we're going for a quick break. Back in a bit. Hello, welcome back. You're watching Sports Tonight Live, prime time, channel 480 on Sky. We want to hear from you throughout the Euro, so please do get in touch. That number, 0207 291 0868. Now, at the moment, we're going to be turning our attentions to Germany, who, for some people, are perhaps favourites up there with Spain and Holland, and I have to say Italy, or else Mina will lose her mind, for the Euros. But if we look at Germany, look at the threat they've got. Obviously, we saw them in the last time out in Africa, and they did very well indeed as well. A young squad that are now grown, obviously, with experience with playing with each other. How much of a chance have they honestly got, in your opinion, Flash?
Earlier on in the season, they were my tip, and after the season, I've seen a lot of their players. I've gone cold on them for some reason, and I've got no evidence for the reason. I've got no. I just think to myself that I'm not happy with the way that they're setting up. Some of the players are playing, some should be playing but are not. And I'm thinking he might be overcomplicating things.
What do you mean someone playing that? What?
Well, I mean, is he going to go with Schweinsteiger, Ozil, Müller, and then will he go with Klose and Gomez up the top? Then you've got Lahm,
No, he plays with Gomez or Klose, one of them.
Well, why? This is what I'm saying. Why?
Because
why
that's how they play. They play 3 with 1. Why would they? Why would they change a winning
behind?
formula?
Well, who's going to play him behind?
You have Ozil, you have Gomez, or he likes Klose in front.
Yeah.
Then you've got
Müller, Cruz.
Müller, no, Cruz would sit at the behind, so it's either next to
Schweinsteiger.
Schweinsteiger.
7 midfielders.
Yeah, but you have so what? That's a problem because you have strength and
You're
depth.
only allowed to play 11.
Yeah, but that shouldn't be a problem. There's so many to choose from.
No, well, anyway, my tip is Germany.
Right.
But for some strange reason I can't really answer at the moment, is I've gone a little bit cold on them. And I look at the oppositions. I look at the opposition in that group, and I think that both Holland and Portugal could get the better of them.
Someone who's been listening in with interest, Mina, is Titus Chalk. He's our German journalist. He's got in touch with us here at Sports Night Live. Titus, now, Flash has tipped him, but he's gone a little bit cold on them. Mina's saying they're the favourites, they're going to win it. From someone who obviously studies the German national side a little bit more than, well, certainly Flash and I, maybe not so much Mina. What are your thoughts on the Germans going into this tournament?
Well, it's obviously causing some debate in the studio there. I can see why. They've looked a bit lacklustre in the last 3 friendlies, really, and I think it's almost a case of them having an embarrassment of riches, really, and that's sort of troubling Joachim Löw. He's a very loyal coach. You know, he's always stuck by his players like Podolski and Klose, even when they've not been performing for their clubs. He even gave Kakao another chance in the national squad. So he wants to sort of stick with his settled lineup that he got working in the World Cup with Khedira and Schweinsteiger as the double pivot, Podolski, Ozil, and Muller and Klose up top. But he's got to deal with players like Götze and Royce, who have put in such phenomenal seasons for their clubs since the World Cup, and he's not quite sure, I don't think, how to balance that. Because the team's really young, and there's people he needs on the pitch just for that experience and for that leadership, and he's just got a little bit of a juggling act trying to integrate that with the really sort of exciting youngsters who are pushing to be included from the bench.
Can he answer that dilemma, Mina?
No, I mean, there is an embarrassment of riches going forward, but I don't think that that's a problem. I think, if anything, that you have options when something should happen to these players. But I think their main problem lies in the defence, because really they only have Matt Hummels, in my opinion, worth anything at the back, and obviously Philipp Lahm. But other than that, their defence is really their problem. If they can just maintain possession, they play really beautiful football, pressing, quick balls forward, pressing game. They play a little bit like the energy of Borussia Dortmund. That's not the problem. You can throw in whoever you like. Their individual talent will succeed. My problem with them is the fact that they are not as well drilled as before, because they haven't had much time together before this tournament, which they did before in the World Cup. But what do you think about their chances in defence? Now, they're up against Holland, who are also, in my opinion, quite abysmal at the back. Other than Portugal, I can't see them in that group. Their defence is actually probably not as bad comparison to the rest of the group. But do you think that they can get through? Because if they get scored against, they can just, I guess, optionally just score 5 more, But what about that defence?
Yeah, it is certainly a creaky defence, and it's not. This is a bit of a strange situation for Germany to be in. I would say Badstuber's probably the guaranteed starter ahead of Hummels, but it's true that there's not a settled centre-back pairing. And when you look at someone like Per Mertesacker being certainly the most experienced member of the back four who could come in, or the centre-half who could come in, he doesn't really inspire confidence. He's got the turning circle of a bus, and he can't really run. So that is a problem. But I do think they'll get it right. I mean, I think you have to. I don't think there's many tournaments that Germany somehow don't get it right once the whistle blows on the first game. So I've got faith in them doing it. I think the defence is a little bit more problematic because Schweinsteiger's not really been fit as well, and he's such an important link between the defence and the attack, and he's great at screening them. You just there's a little bit more risk of them being exposed, I think, if he's not at the top of his game.
It's so interesting that you say that about Schweinsteiger, because Chris thinks he's the best defender, best midfielder in the world, ahead of Andrea Pirlo. In fact,
I didn't say he's best in the world. I said I think he is better than Pirlo. But that's an argument I'm going to have with you very shortly.
Much better.
Tony, let's get away from the fact of that they're so all-star, all-gunning going forward. But when they play against Denmark, who don't let any goals in, and they're going to be frustrated. There's no weak link on the money every single game, because Portugal, if you score 2 against them, they'll try and score, they'll 3. And you got Holland. It is such they've said it's a group of death, and that's an understatement.
Yeah.
Because if you slip up in one game, and also, Tony, I was going to say is, how do you think the Bayern Munich boys will be after the season that they've had mentally?
Yeah, I mean, it's a big issue. Löw has come out in the last couple of days and really backed all the Bayern players ahead of the Dortmund players. There's this kind of... There's probably a bit more made out of it by the press than there should be, that, he tends to prefer the Bayern players over the Borussia Dortmund players. And I think that's, as he's pointed out, because Bayern just have much more experience in Europe and of those big games. I think they'll mostly be okay. If anyone is going to have a problem, I think it's Schweinsteiger. And it's not just because he missed that penalty in the Champions League final shootout. It's because his fitness isn't quite there, and I think we've seen it before of players of any country, when their fitness, when they can't quite trust their body, it's very difficult for them to regain form, especially in an environment like this group of death where there's so little room for error. And partly I think that's why Ilkay Gundogan made it into the squad, actually, because I see him as possibly a better replacement to Schweinsteiger in that midfield than Toni Kroos, because he's a bit more defensively minded. He's harder working, I feel, and is very strong on the ball, very hard to knock off the ball, and got a great passing range as well. So I think Löw is kind of hedging his bets. He's just under pressure, though, to get the selection right, because there is so little room for manoeuvre in that group. And should something go wrong in the first game, if they don't walk away with 3 points, if Schweinsteiger doesn't look fit, if one of his players that he's always loyal to, maybe like a Thomas Muller, whose form's been very erratic, doesn't show up, then he's going to be under pressure to sort of see whether he can pick them up or tinker and you know, change it round enough to sort of get them through the group.
Well, Titus, it's been an absolute pleasure to hear your views on Germany. We shall see how they do, obviously, in the tournament in a week or so time. But thanks for now for joining us, and we'll speak to you soon.
Yep, great. Take it easy.
I mean, we've got to go to a break very shortly. But out of all the teams, then Germany, for both of you, you're picking as the ones who will be lifting the trophy.
Listen, if we're going by, you know, should football actually win? Like, if we, you know, the best squad in this tournament, in my opinion, probably the best in the world. Maybe just Argentina's on par with them. If we're counting this, they should win it. They might not, because football's not fair, as we saw with Chelsea winning the Champions League.
Oi! Whoa! There's no need to go.
You know, and the fact that they're against Denmark, who also like to control the ball in the same way that Holland like to control the ball. But
I think Portugal and Holland could well go through here, and we could see Germany not progressing.
You're forgetting about the talented Mr. Kelly for England. He'll change it all, I'm telling you right now. Now listen, we're going for another break, but Mina will have a say on her team, Italy, right after this. Good evening to you. Welcome back to Sports Tonight Live, where we're broadcasting throughout the Euros here on Primetime Channel 480. Or if you're somewhere else in the world and can't get your hands on Sky, you can watch us online, sportstonightlive.com. It's myself, Chris Cohen, Mina Rzouki and Gordon Flash Watson. Now, let's turn our attentions to your boys, Mina. Not that you own them, but you support them, of course, being that you are mostly Italian. Yes. Yeah, it's fair to say. Go on. What were you about to say about Italy?
Because basically we've had a fight about the fact that you don't think that Andrea Pirlo is remotely at the top of the list of best midfielders in the world.
No.
So I want to hear the list that you've written down of who you think is better than Andrea Pirlo.
Okay.
The man who single-handedly inspired Juventus to a stunning win in the league, undefeated, practically undefeated in the Coppa Italia except for the last match, who's been day in and day out the most consistent player in Italy and the one that's not making Spain sleep at night.
Okay, I would say
Yes.
that any of these people on my list
Yes.
could have single-handedly done exactly what Pirlo's done this season. Here's my list.
Okay.
Xavi, Iniesta, Silva, Schneider, Modric, Yaya Toure, Robben, Lampard, Ozil. I'm saying all of those could have done a job.
Modric
Modric is
who fell off at the end of the team, who really, I'm sorry, he's done well, but he's done well for Tottenham Hotspurs. Please do not compare Milan in the Champions League, Juventus in an unbeaten streak, and you're comparing Pirlo to Modric? Are you insane?
I like him. He's not a good-looking
Barring
guy, but
Xavi.
he's made the most of what he's got.
Barring Xavi and Iniesta,
Yeah.
there is no player that comes near Andrea Pirlo.
Oh, you've got some pressure on Pirlo. For me, I
mean, he's saying Johan Kabay. I mean, I don't even know what to answer to that, you know, so...
Because he'll go further in the competition than Pirlo. But that's the bottom line. I think Pirlo will be going home in the group phase.
Right, OK. Well, Italy are going home, apparently, because Republic of Ireland will take their place.
Yeah, Pirlo could get dominated by the Irish boys.
How old is Pirlo?
Ireland, who usually get very outrun in midfield and usually outnumbered in midfield.
I don't think they'll
and you're
go through
comparing
midfield.
it, really, and you think that that midfield that usually is so done for immediately.
I think Pirlo and
manage
Rossi will sit too deep, and they invite pressure on. And rely on Balotelli.
It's funny you say that because Italy play with a rather high defensive line that feeds the ball immediately. It's ball playing, very interesting football. Possession stats, they are second only to Spain around the world in possession stats. They do not let the ball let go of the ball. Daniele De Rossi is probably the best defensive midfielder in the world.
But the thing is, he can play a high line when you're playing against the Faroe Islands, San Marino, Armenia, and all the other
Republic of
Eurovision Song
Ireland at the
Contest
time
losers.
had defeated Holland and Germany in their qualifying groups, basically.
Okay, well then Pirlo's going to have to carry him single-handedly.
Pirlo was a target of Chelsea not that long ago.
We're talking, of
but
course.
the one downside to it at the time was his mobility, because he's getting on a bit. Is Pirlo, but obviously he doesn't need to be mobile.
Exactly.
But do you not think in their group that perhaps some of the live wires in midfield and the other teams that are playing around them, they can bypass him, and perhaps it's his defensive qualities that might let Pirlo down?
Well, his intelligence makes it so that he can cover up the fact that he doesn't need to run so far. Also, you've got Daniele De Rossi, who's played a lot in the centre-back position for Roma. He's played in defence, he's played in in midfield, and he can do the dirty work as much as you like. He'll run his socks off, as will Marchisio, who we've seen do the same for Juventus.
He'll run his socks off very slowly.
Fine, but Marchisio is strong enough.
Because he hasn't got the energy that he had 3 years ago.
But firstly, I don't think that pace gets you very far, as we've witnessed from England. You know, I mean, Walcott is what, pace and nothing more than that.
Well, that's in the final third. That's not in your final third.
No, but pace doesn't get you far, and I think that it depends on how you play your football. Italy's never been a fast team, neither has Spain. Yeah, that's never done anything to them. Do you think that De Rossi and Pirlo will both play holding midfield roles and just protect the back four? Because I prefer Pirlo as basically the one behind the front two because of his brain. But because he hasn't got the legs to track back, he now needs to play with the ball in front of him. Well, this is the first Italian.
Take a bit away from Pirlo.
This is the first Italian team that we're going to see in a tournament that's better in attack than it is in defence.
Well, then
Having said that, they've got the best defence in Europe in qualifiers. Having conceded only
because
2.
if you look at Buffon, who's now back to his best, you'd have to say he's had a formidable season with Juve, and that sense of the amount of Juventus players in that squad. It's completely opposite to the amount of Liverpool players in England, because we see that we go, but when it's Juventus who have just come off winning the league, that spine, and it's not, they could play a formation where it's pretty much Juve all over, isn't it?
This is the thing, it depends on what formation they decide to play, because if we are talking about that, I mean, the formation they've played really essentially has been 4-3-1-2 with trequartista, which is Montolivo, let's say, behind the front two of Balotelli and Cassano, which has lost against Russia. But what they should be playing, in my opinion, and probably in the opinion of most Italian football journalists, is the 3-5-2, which is what Napoli play, which is what Juventus really won. You know, they played that towards the end of the season, this latter half. And that would be brilliant, because you'll have Bonucci, Barzagli, Chiellini, or Maggio, who plays for Napoli instead of one of them. Barzagli is now in doubt about coming to the Euros. And then you've got 5. So you've got lots of cover for Pirlo, for him to come and be as creative as he likes. You've got runners in midfield. You've got the likes of Giaccherini, who can track back as well as going forward. And then you've got the front two, who I don't think anyone can ever bet against Balotelli and Cassano.
What's the Italian fans and Italian journalists, their thoughts? What are they about Balotelli?
There's so much pressure on him now with obviously the heart condition that was suffered, obviously, for Cassano, obviously. Balotelli is now the focal point, isn't he? But he could be a hero in this tournament.
Well, in Italy he's considered a genius of football, but he's also considered a liability, because you have no idea what you're getting with Balotelli. I mean, if you look at the match against Poland, which is the first match that was, you know, he scored a goal for Italy, the first to be scored by a black man in the Italian shirt. He is someone who's taking both country and team, socially, sporting-wise, above and beyond. So this is great for them. This is a huge shift for Italy. From back the defensive team, you know, that's led by this big boss on the bench, like the Capellos and the Lippis. You've got Prandelli, who's very open, he's very warm. He's giving a chance to these guys. You know, there's a code that they have to abide by, otherwise Daniele De Rossi, Balotelli are out. But yes, he is considered a genius, but you don't know what you're getting with him.
So are we going to see an Italian team come to the Championship with a lot of flair and leave the fear at the door and just go and express yourselves? Because we haven't really seen that before from the Italian side, that normally they just scramble through the group stages and they make sure that they do not get beat unless it's on penalties.
Yeah, that's true. That is very much the Italian way. You're not going to see that so much, because they can't actually rely just on their defence. Despite the fact that they've got the Juventus backline, the same Juventus backline that's considered the least amount of goals in Europe. Having said that, they're much better going forward. So you will see them express themselves. They're still going to play with fear. This is still Italy at the end of the day.
Well, the one thing I would say about Balotelli, because this fascinates me, Balotelli's involvement in the Euros, because at Manchester City, you can see he wants to be the main man. Wherever he plays, he wants to be the man. Everyone's going, hey, it's Balotelli, he's going to get us the goals. But obviously he's competing with Aguero, Dzeko, Tevez, you know, and he hasn't really been able to be that man, and perhaps that's where that frustration's come.
But when he has been, he's let himself down by getting sent off.
That's exactly my point. So he wants to be that man. There's going to be so much pressure on him to be that man for Italy, and we know that he's a genius when it comes to football. But if he was to pick up 2 yellows in that group stage, he could pretty much cost Italy progression in the tournament if he's to get suspended. Do you think he can lower his temperament?
As important as he is and as talented he is, they can do without him. This is the thing. I mean,
but where do the goals come from?
Antonio Di Natale, who's been top scorer in the last 2
seasons. I would have played Di Natale instead of Balotelli.
It is very much a toss-up between the two. There's no guarantees for the starting lineup. They actually won the qualifiers by playing a false number 9. They've been playing Giuseppe Rossi and Cassano, and it's all this creative midfield that swaps positions and interlinks, and they haven't got that anymore, because obviously Cassano is not the Cassano that we saw before the heart attack.
Will they go for Balotelli in the Luca Toni role of being at the top of the tree, hit me and then we'll feed off you, and they'll go from back to front really quickly? Or will they still try and feed through midfield and then get runners, in which case you can see Balotelli drift out wide and get the ball, and he can be dangerous, as we see with Man City.
There is a possibility of him drifting out wide. They're not going to play. They are going to try to feed the ball through midfield because essentially that's the best department that they've got in their team. They've got a superb midfield. I mean, you've got intelligent players in there, the likes of Thiago Motta, Montolivo, Pirlo. They're not going to want to bypass that, whatever happens with a bunch of runners, because that's not really what they have.
Well, this Italy chat has obviously taken us through the whole of this final part. Just before we wrap up the show, let's talk about that group and your 1 and 2 for that group. So we've got Croatia, Italy, Republic of Ireland and Spain.
We already know what Flash says.
First and second, Mina.
Ladies first.
Just first and second.
First and second.
I'm going to go for Spain and Italy. First, yeah, Spain.
First Spain, second Italy.
First Spain, second Republic of Ireland.
That's driving me insane.
Well, we shall see. I like
what about
Republic
you?
of
Don't sit on the fence.
I will say, I'm going to go complete controversy. I'm going to say first Italy, second Republic of Ireland. Spain, what's happened? I can't believe it.
Oh, yeah.
Well, you never know. I mean, it's not that I don't think they'll do very well, but they're missing some of their best players. Like, they're missing Puyol, who I think is a huge loss, as well as David Villa.
Well, listen, if you have enjoyed this debate, feel free to join us throughout the Euros here on Primetime Channel 480. For now, from myself, Mina and Gordon Flash Watson, it's goodbye, and we shall see you when the tournament continues and starts. See you in a mo.